stream which we're unable to forward in this building. So you are warned. Importantly, before we begin, I must remind you all that if the fire alarm sounds during the meeting, we will need to evacuate the building. Please use the fire exit at the rear of the council chamber or the main exit and make your way to the fire assembly point in the car park at the side of the building. If you feel you may have difficulty evacuating the building, please let the member of our corporate services team over on the side there know that you require assistance. I'd like to remind everyone that in accordance with the law, this meeting will be recorded and broadcast live via our website. Any members of the public express that they do not wish to be recorded or filmed, I ask those carrying out these activities to respect their wishes. So thank you very much. I'll now revert to the agenda and to item 1, which is apologies for absence.
Bryce Stratford, Anne Sevier and Richard Puritan.
Thank you very much. That brings us on to item 2, declarations of interest. So, Joe.
Item 5 and item 6 is reference 26/00492. New Forest District Council plan application. I am District Council.
Yeah.
And item 6 is a reference 26/33 or 00543, and that application is in my role, so I'm declared as an ordinance.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Any other declarations indicated?
Yes, Chairman. Famously, I'm also a district councillor. I'd like legal advice, please, as to whether we should avail ourselves of the opportunity of leaving or whether we can stay and vote.
I think so, yeah. I think it's actually fine for you to say vote on those items. It's the same principle as when we had planning applications and the boards that were in planning applications. So yes, we have a role as local authority councillor, and that application comes from that local authority. We're sitting here with different NVA member and voting on that based on our local plan and planning policy. So that's a separation of roles for that.
Thank you very much. That sounds like sound advice. I hope I won't get a big fee requirement.
Okay, then let's go.
Yeah, if I can be added to the list, I'm also district councillor.
That's it. Okay, thank you, members. That's understood. That brings us on to item 3, which are the minutes. Did anyone have any comments or concerns about the minutes from last time? No, in which case I propose them as a true record of the last meeting. Can I be seconded by Mary? Oh,
I beg your pardon, Chair. I require to abstain as I wasn't at full meeting. I said I'm going to put you.
seconded by Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you. All those in favour of this correct record?
Yes, it's just so I was reporting that that's thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That brings us on to item 4, Chair's announcements. Some of you may be aware that the government yesterday published its latest changes to the planning policy framework. So I'm going to ask David to say a few words about that for you, and then I think we'll get a more substantive briefing on the rewrites in due course. But obviously, officers were burning midnight oil, I think, to keep abreast of this. That's nice. So, David.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. Yeah, I can't be anything better than spending my evening reading the new MPPF. So, no, it's exactly as the Chair said. Members will be aware that we're working in a planning system where we have our own local development plan under section 38(6) of the Southern Country Planning Act. That's the property source of policies that we make decisions on. Above that, the government prepared national planning policy. So for the last 12, 15 years or so, that's been known as the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework. The most recent version of the framework was published in December 2024. That was the version of the framework that all of our committee reports were written under. Then yesterday afternoon, the government published their new NPPF, just through I have printed it off and read it. So that came out yesterday. A couple of important headlines from that. So, as the chair said, I think we'll do a slightly more thorough briefing for members. Once we've fully digested absolutely everything. The officers have read it, we have digested it, we've had a look through what some of the main headlines are. I think for the purposes of this committee, just a couple of things to bear in mind. So, number one, the NPPF is, as the bars would say, a material consideration. So we have a plan-led system, we look at our local plan, but we have a system that enables us to consider other material considerations. The NPPF is a material consideration. It comes into immediate effect. It doesn't have like a gradual transition period for a month or two. It's black and white. As soon as it comes out, it is material to planning decision making, which means for our committee this morning, it's something we should have regard to. So in terms of, I'm not going to go through the 127 pages, you'll be pleased to know. But in terms of some of the headlines for national parks, they remain recognised as areas, special areas where development should be restricted. For the kind of NPPF geeks amongst us, the previous version of the framework, paragraphs 189 and 190, covered specifically national parks, so it's also about their level of protection. It's also about scale of development within them. It's also about development within their setting, and it had a major development test. Those two paragraphs are now in policy on the natural environment section, so that's chapter 19 of the new framework, and policy N4 is called protected landscapes, and it largely reiterates the previous two paragraphs that we were operating under for the last 18 months and puts it into the new framework that is material as of yesterday. So in terms of the operation of this meeting, I think it's entirely right, we acknowledge that the new framework has come out, it is material. What I would say is, in terms of the 6 agenda items we've got today, not many of them are engaging sort of fundamental major elements of national planning policy. They're important applications, they're engaging local issues that are important, and our officers will introduce those to you. Where, if necessary, we've cited a bit of the framework that existed until yesterday in our report, the officer's introduction or in answer to any questions you raised, we're happy to clarify what the new framework says on that. But I think importantly, as professional planning officers, we don't feel the new framework is introduced any major changes in national policy that alter the recommendations that are in front of you today. It's still as per the reports, and my voice on my right will introduce any relevant elements. So yeah, headline, new framework out, immediate effect, it's material. We need to show we've had regard to it, and in assessing these applications, if there are any queries from members, that's what the officers are here to advise on. But yeah, we're confident that the recommendations don't need to be changed because of what was published yesterday. That helps.
Okay, thank you very much, David. I sort of like to thank the officer for getting on top of the new NPPF so quickly, because it is a substantial read. And just to reiterate, we'll get a more detailed briefing for us to have a chance to fully digest this, but we're grateful. I think I did query with Dave as well, where officers tell us where a new section of the NPPF applies, that will be minuted. So that's how we will record it in the next of this meeting. Okay, I don't think there are any questions on that. No, oh, David.
Yes, Chair. I just wonder whether David could articulate exactly what the difference is in terms of material considerations.
Yeah, we see. So as I said, the framework as a whole is a material consideration. So I don't have quite fundamentally revised the format of the NPPF. So the new form, one of the reasons why it's got a lot longer now. So it's broken down into plan making policy. So that's relevant for us drafting our local plan or any of the constituent policies here drafting their local plans. So it goes plan making policies, then it has what they're calling decision making policies. So they're relevant for things like today. The rest of the framework then is topic or theme based. So it goes through, in front of me, sustainable development, delivering homes, high quality places. And it sets out under each of those what that means for plan making, which is particularly relevant today, and what it means for decision making, which could be relevant for today. But I think probably the section that's most relevant for the purposes of the committee today would be the section on the The concern we have seen a historic environment, so as we get to the applications, some of these are quite small scale applications, which aren't really triggering major bits of national policy. Some of them are engaging considerations of things like impacts on conservation areas or impacts on listed buildings. And that they will be the applications where if it's helpful, we can cite, the new bit of national policy says, but quite a lot of this agenda is going to really ripple across from what is high level national policy to what like local issues for say a sign or something like that. But where they are engaging national issues like conservation areas, listed buildings, we can highlight that even in the introduction.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I suspect that particularly for new members who might find this explanation a bit complicated, we could probably benefit by example rather than, the most detailed of explanations.
Thank you. Actually, my next chair's announcement was to welcome our new members, Committee Martin and Gordon. As David says, it's not normally this long here at this stage in the meeting, so it's great to have new members here. They've knows the committee well over many years, so the benefit from that. But so welcome. I'll move on now to the planning applications for committee decision, and to our first item, report item number 1, which is application reference 26/00/190, which is advertisement consent for Meaden's Skirt of Brockenhurst, Sway Road, Brockenhurst, and that's going to be presented for us by Natalie. Natalie, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. Before I start the presentation, I'll just point out references to the NPPF, the new NPPF that David mentioned for completeness. So in the policy section of the report where we list the NPPF policies, these would now read section 4, achieving sustainable development, section 3, decision making, section 16, promoting healthy communities, and section 15, promoting sustainable transport. There are also 2 references in paragraph 8.7 and 8.13 to the former paragraph 141 of the NPPF, which related to advertisement consent. In the new NPPF, I cannot find any reference to advertisement consent. However, the wording that was in the old one was taken from the actual advertisement regulations, and those regulations are unchanged. So it would be simplifying the content that needs to be in there and not duplicating the regulations. And just to conclude on the NPPF, the recommendation is unchanged in terms of the NPPF. So the application site is located to the east of Sway Road in the defined village of Brockenhurst. Site contains a car sales establishment and the main building and forecourt front onto Sway Road. This slide shows the location of the block plan of the site. The application for advertisement consent relates to 4 signs, 3 on the building, labelled A, B, and C, and 1 pole mounted sign in the southwest corner labelled D on this slide. The signage has already been installed. So this slide shows the elevations to the front of the building. The slide at the top is the pre-existing signage, and the sign at the bottom is the signage proposed as part of this application. The pre-existing signage was approved in 2015 at combination of metal and acrylic signage. The new signs are shown in the elevation at the bottom, and got sign here, got entrance portal around here, and then a sign here. The size of the building is height of 4.1 metres. This slide shows the elevation of the pole mounted sign. It's 4.5 metres in height. All of the signs are acrylic, which is consistent with the pre-existing sign site, and the signs are non-illuminated. So some photographs. This is the front elevation from Sway Road. It's a review towards the pole sign, which lies adjacent to the main entrance. Review the entrance with the pole sign. Be looking back up toward the front elevation. Review to travel along the Sway Road. And the view along Sway Road, you can see the petrol station opposite. This is assuming of the pole sign. And just a closer view of the sign C. So the application follows a review scheme for illuminated signage. The signage in this application is non-illuminated. As set out in paragraph 8.5 of the committee report, there are specific considerations when you're looking at an application for request and consent, and these relate to amenity and public safety. So there will considerably no adverse impacts on public safety. And in terms of amenity, the principle of using materials proposed has been established through previous consents and would not compromise the immediate street scene. The signage I mentioned is non-illuminated. And in relation to the amount of signage, it's predominantly located around the main building frontage, set back from the highway, and does not lead to a harmful increase in prominence or clutter along the front of the site. So overall, it's recommended that adverse consent is granted, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Members, have you got any questions for the case officer at this stage, please? No? Okay, thank you. In which case we have no public speaker for or against the proposal, but we do have a representative of Parish Council, Councillor John Gorby. Welcome, Councillor. To speak. Obviously, you have no time limit. All the committee always appreciate conciseness. And then if you could stay where you are, you know the drill, but if you stay where you are, again, in case members have questions, so you're to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We heard the officer say that if you like, the signage as it now is sort of agreeable to you. Some of the, if you look, the build up to this was the fact that the original application, which has been superseded by the current one, it did have illuminated signs, which we objected to. Then came up the ones without illumination. We said, well, hang on, it's not good for the street scene. I think it was a divided vote in our committee, but it was decided that we would object to it on the grounds that it's sort of what did I write down here somewhere? Contrary to the street scene is what I wrote down. So that's what we've got, and that's where we stand, Mr. Chairman. It's not, it's, obviously we try to keep Brockenhurst a safe place and not overwhelmed with signage. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Members, any questions for Councillor Chair?
How long have the signs been there? The ones that are there now, how long have they been on there? They've been on there for a year.
Can you repeat that? How long has what been there? It's starting in the garage.
The signs are up.
Probably only about not even a year, I don't think, not the standalone sign. But over the years, they've tried to put different signs on and improve from their point of view. Obviously, the sales at the garage, So it's trying to be progressive, if you like. And as a problem is, we're probably, unfortunately, not making them as progressive as they should be. But with the same situation around the corner at another garage, they keep improving things, and it's just a matter of keeping in line with what NFDC approved sign-wise.
Any other question members for the speaker? No. Councillor, just you said one of the streets, I wondered if you could be a bit more specific about what it is about the signage that's causing you problem.
Just that the committee was divided on grounds that we said, well, no, we don't like illuminated signs, and that does not just apply to the garages either. Something got to do with illuminated sign in Brockenhurst, it causes, as a parish council, a problem. So maybe, says he trying to defend the parish council, maybe we should up our game a bit in this 21st century. But we are where we are, and as a committee, they decided that hang on a minute, we don't like the idea of that. The signs, because there's too many of them, will be, and that's the street scene.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't think there are any other questions, so thank you.
Members, given what you've heard from our speaker, are there any other questions for the officer at this stage? Was clarification? No. In which case, sorry, I do apologize. Caroline.
Sorry, just to try and clarify then, so the standalone sign is a new one, but the other two are new versions of what was there before, is that right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Any other points, members want to clarify? In which case, we're in debate, please. Now, you, David.
Yeah, I think the officers have got this right. It's immensely helpful to see it. In the photographs convince me. This to me is quite restrained signage. So on this occasion, I'm going to side with those on the parish council who thought it acceptable, and I'm also going to side with our officers who are recommending it. And so I so propose, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Any other members' views on this one? Mary.
Thank you, Chair. I support the comments made by David. I feel that there's potential to be more of an issue with people trying to find the garage and causing problems with signalling too soon or signalling too late and to find it. And I think then that would be a risk. I feel this is very much support those in the parish council who were in approval of this and very much support the officer's recommendation on the second to this proposal.
Thank you very much, Mary. Yeah, Carol.
It's just to say, I think the whole building isn't really suitable for the street scene in Brockenhurst, if you like. It's sort of stands out as not really fitting in. So I think really the signage is neither here nor there because we've got the whole building to pretend we're going on. But we're not here to judge that. So I think the signage, we need to encourage businesses, don't we, to be able to compete. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I tend to agree with members that it's clearly the right decision to assist the illuminated side on side of quite hard to think that we could sustain an objection to this. But so we have, just to reiterate, we have a proposal and a second officer's recommendation, which is grant subject to conditions. Yes, I probably we've got the option to speak for 1 more minute. I think so.
That's right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. In which case, we have that proposal to grant this advertising consent subject to conditions have been proposed and seconded. So members, those in favour of the officer's recommendation. Thank you very much. That brings us to the report item number 2. Which is number 26/00366, which is another advertisement consent from New Forest District Council. It's in the NFDC car park, Brookley Road, Brockenhurst, and that's going to be presented to us by Julie Blake. Julie, thank you.
So basically, previous application, in the identified it's the groups of voting. So section 12 now is EV2, which is people on the same places. Section 19 replaces section 15, and that's still reserving and enhancing natural environments. And section 16 has been replaced with section 20, which is reserving and enhancing the environments. The chambers make no amendments to the decision and actually. So going to the size, the site is on the north side of Victory Road. As Chair said, it's the main car park in Brockenhurst, which is maintained by the District Council. It's a District Council application that has been submitted on behalf of Birmingham Forest. They are actually independent business first, so And the site comprises of the main car park. On the high street, properties 54 to 56 are actually designated as non-heritage non-designated assets. So we're going to block them, the site, the application is for 2 non-illuminated notices. The boards will be sited side by side. They are for the purposes of providing source information and promoting key cross messaging such as the cross code. The signage replaces existing signage which is currently on the side of the convenience and the size of the car park. So the site of the 2 commercial stores are indicated on the red dots in the recessed area in the entrance to the car park. Proposed celebrations, key considerations for these are actually in relation to planning permission and the registered consent. Planning permission to apply because of permanent signage. Considerations are appropriate design and scale, impacts on the wilderness conservation area and impacts on neighbouring community and pedestrian and highway safety. Both of those stores are post mounted, 2 metres high by 1.7 metres wide, comprise the metal framework with the wrapping. The header is an oak header that contains no logo or any logo at all. There have been no objections raised by the conversation, so. So some photos, this is the side that is taken from the pavement opposite. It's the back, so the access to the car park showing the non-designated commercial assets. Signage would be in a section just by the little bit that's a little actually something very square actually. So slide 5 identifies the actual location of notice boards, and they will be sited between the curb and the tree line. The application makes no reference to removing trees or hedgerows, and it's designated non-parking area with pedestrian way that also runs across the area. So slide 6 shows the width of the current main line and pedestrian way in relation to the 2 ways it remains in the car park. Based on the drop down lane rise 2 metres wide, so it would comply with the housing road on highways. And out of that because the quantity is actually given in parallel 8.7. 1.7 so it's report. So slides and 8 are photos taken from the executive when schemes in the car park. This is to illustrate that the notice will complete any protecting vehicle movements and has no impact on visibility. So on the slide, this is an illustration of the signage that's in the car park. So the top left is the current signage, which is non-changeable. It's a physical facial sign. So the bottom left is the signage, which is very similar in obviously on the previous. The top bottom left and right are the existing signage, which is in the car park. So summing up the application, terms of planning permission, it's compliant with the relevant policies and in terms of design and scale. It's considered appropriate with its intended use. The signage replaces the existing signage, so allows for the information is being changed and updated regularly. The design focus on registers is support the local business. Which is towards business plus, so it promotes other businesses within the area. It's considered to be a small scale development, causing no private local impact and no impact on biodiversity. Public safety concerns, visibility issues, have been addressed in the reports, various steps to any concerns. And there's no further harm to the conservation area. With this in mind, it's recommended that planning commission and noticing consent be granted subject to commission.
Thank you very much, Julie. Members, have you got any questions of the officer before we go any further? No. In which case, we have no public speakers for or against the proposal, but we have a speaker from the Town Council, Councillor Corby again. So thanks, sir, for that. You know, we've also repeat it.
Thank you, Chairman. The signs as proposed, the signs are okay, we can approve those, no problem, but it's the sighting of the signs. So that, because sometimes you get these Tesco lorries that have to deliver Tesco, and they go in towards the car park, and then they come back out to get across the road in reverse to the shop to deliver. And when they are there, and there's pedestrians there, some of the things you can't see as clearly, you wouldn't be able to see as clearly in the signs as proposed. So it's sighting as opposed to the content of the sign that would be the problem, or the difficulty.
Thank you. Members, any questions for our speaker? No? Thank you very much, yes.
Thank you.
Any points of clarification with the officer, the speaker? No? In which case, we are into debate. Any views on some of these?
Sorry. Chairman, it struck me that there's a bit of Alice in Wonderland about this, because in the normal course of events, New Forest District Council would have simply replaced this sign under the permitted development rights that they have. But because there was a change in responsibility and we have Go New Forest, they now have to look for planning permission for something that would have otherwise been. And actually, the effect is exactly the same in terms of the siting of it and indeed the design of the thing. So in my view, this is perfectly acceptable. I think the officers have dealt with all the salient points. With respect to the parish council, I really don't think there's a safety issue attached to this. So I would recommend that we go along with the officer's recommendation.
Is that a formal proposal?
It is a formal proposal. Thank you.
Chair.
The same thoughts, David, really, I think it's like today, and I don't have a problem with it at all. The only thing is the heritage area. This is, and it's in the conservation area as well, but it's been there for quite a number of years. And I don't think there's any problem with that. And I would second David's proposal and go with it.
Thank you, Joe. Any other comments from members on this one? No, so we have, excuse me, we have a proposal to grant consent subject to conditions being proposed and been seconded. Councillor Corby, you're entitled to a minute to respond to what you've heard from the committee. You wish to take the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, we'd be thinking that all I'm here to do is to complain about everything this morning, but that's not really the case. Progress is progress, and presumably, obviously, the district council have thought about these signs and where they've got to go and how they're going to work. And we just hope for the best. You just have to learn to live with the future. That's as simple as that. Okay, so we wish you almost the best of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. So, members, we have a proposal to grant consent subject to condition. We want those from the second. So all those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please. Thank you very much, members. That brings us on to the report item number 3, which is 26 League 00455. The full application planning commission, Yew Tree, Render, sorry, Minstead. Just to say, we also have a list of building applications this will take subsequently Secondly, as we are required to do. So this one is going to be presented, of course, by Catherine, not by.
Just in relation to the changes that were referred, this application on new companies, this applications required, have been considered with reference, currently being considered with reference to relevant paragraphs of the 2024 info. And in the policies list, as we've heard, we are now looking at sections 14, 19 and 20 respectively. Paragraph 202 of the NPPF is actually paragraph 8 and 14 of the report. That's now is by HE 5, 6 and 9 of section 20. I reviewed these, it's not considered a recommendation or a different made as the general objectives remain the same. The application site is located to the western side of Lyndhurst Road and provides a detached road between the building and attached outbuilding within the conservation area. The application seeks sufficient various works for the road, including the addition of solar and essence heat pumps to the northern elevation, and external alterations relating to chimney heights, relocating cladding on the single story elements, and changes to the configuration and number of windows and doors, and an extension to the existing outbuilding, with solar panels on its rear, western facing roof slope. We've got the existing and proposed ground floor plans. You can see the regular cursor in this location. And the lines, the references to the changes to the fenestration. And the existing and proposed south elevation, which is the front elevation. North elevation, which is the rear elevation. And the west elevation. The east elevation, which faces the road. And the proposed further plans. The existing outbuilding on the top with the proposed extension to put in the form of a carport. And the elevation plans of that outbuilding. And the rear elevation showing the proposed solar panels. For information, this plan shows the evolution of the dwelling in terms of its embellishments. I don't know if you can tell on the colours, but the blue shaded area towards the right hand side is the historic core of the listed building. And moving to your left, the pink shaded area was added in the 1970s. The green shaded area was added following permission granted in 2010. And the small yellow area was added following permission granted in 2015. The 2015 permission also included an extension to the outbuilding, and by reason of this extension shaded yellow being commenced and completed, the 2015 permission is extant, and therefore the remainder of that development could not be implemented. This is the photo, so this is the south elevation, and the outbuilding on the left hand side of the photo. And consideration of the dwelling. The western elevation of the dwelling in the rear of the outbuilding. And the rear northern elevation. That is the outbuilding. And another view taken from the front of the dwelling. And looking across the rear of the outbuilding. Amended plans have been received addressing concerns raised by the authorities building design and conservation area team, who ultimately raised the objection as the proposal was not resulted in loss of historic fabric. The concerns raised by the Parish Council relate to light pollution, the proposed 5-mile doors on the single-storey western elevation. and the alterations to the outboarding. The concern in respect of the high corridors relates to light pollution, and the concerns related to the outboarding relates to scale. In respect of the creating of the horizon elevation, this would essentially link the gap. It potentially involves gap and the cursories between a set of existing fully laid stores. This elevation faces into the site and as well situated within the site boundaries, and the northern site boundary being that closest to the dwelling features dense vegetation, and the proposed pergola would aid somewhat in breaking up any light spillage from deck mineral. So overall, it's not considered that the proposal would result in any unexpected impacts relating to tranquility in dark night night skies. In respect of, sorry, this is just that elevation just to remind you. In respect of the extension to the outbuilding, the amended plans noted reduced scale such that the proposal is now identical to that was granted permission in 2015, which, as I mentioned, if it stands, the objection to this element of the proposal can therefore be reasonably sustained. There are no concerns relating to neighbouring community impacts or upon the character and appearance of the conservation area. There is an additional condition suggested in respect to the pergola. This to ensure it remains as per the plans and it's not been built or used for any purpose. Other conditions relating to materials and external lighting are considered reasonable and necessary, and therefore permission is recommended.
Thank you very much. So we go further. Are there any questions to the officer? Mary.
Thank you, Chair. Harry, is there a slight overhang on the building that sort of have the fire building doors sort of slightly behind on the roof? Sure that there seems to be some kind of
There might be slightly ease, yeah, there's not any projection as such, but I thought there's probably two sets of fully glazed doors, so we're really just looking at this area in the middle here that would be infilled. So there will be a net increase in the levels of glazing, but primarily concentrated through this ground floor section, projecting west into the garden, where there's already substantially doors already.
it's just it was a sort of slight overhang all the existing windows, which you would expect to have in the huge areas, so that's I would think that's going to assist the brightness.
It would assist us on upward, yeah, but I unfortunately don't have a
No, that's
so
right.
it was manual to just confirm that.
Thank you.
Okay, no, is there any other questions? David?
Yeah, I can completely understand the benefits of a pergola in terms of shade and just the amenity that it affords. But one of the negatives to this is that people do have a habit of draping lights around pergolas. Is there anything by way of planning regulations that would prevent this from happening?
Condition 5 requires that any consultant explain when be submitted and approved by us beforehand.
So more specifically, would that apply to somebody simply plugging in, a row of lights in the way that is often done? Because I think you could interpret that as something much more sort of fitted and substantial.
It wouldn't necessarily cover things like fairy lights or costume lighting. I think it really depends on the type of lighting that we have to make, should it become an issue.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit dissatisfied with that, but it's there, isn't it?
No, there's any other questions to the officer before we proceed? No. In which case we have one speaker in support of the application. Gary Bradford, who's the planning agent. Welcome, Mr. Bradford. So you've got 3 minutes, to make your case. stay where you are when we finish, in case the members want to ask you any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the chair and members. Just to reiterate that this application before you has lots of recommendation for approval, which as conservation officer support. There were a couple of objections, mainly to well, partly to the garage which was amended. As Carl said, we're back to what is important with the exception of the solar panels. Brilliant. There were questions about the chimney. Again, that design was revised to conservation officer recommendations. Just some background on that, where the thatch had been rethatched and the bridge had been redone. It's now too close to the outlet of the chimney to break it up regulations. With regards to light pollution, again, Mr. Barney says there's no upward facing or sorry, there's no additional upward facing glazing. It's all just thrown down to the west. Again, in accordance with conservation officer support and also the case officer as well. So these are certain questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. David?
Yeah, I wonder whether you would be prepared to make a public declaration that your customer here will not, under any circumstances, drape fairy lights or festoon any lights on the pergola.
I'll speak to it directly, but I think that is all kind of part of that condition fodder. If there are any objections, then see what the statement will if it becomes an issue.
I think that's the best I can get.
Thank you. Any other questions for our speaker? No? Okay, thank you much. Okay, members, so we have a recommendation to grant this subject to conditions. We're into debate. Oh, I'm really sorry, I do apologise. Yeah. I'm terribly sorry. Yeah. So we do have a speaker for the parish council. Deputy Pascoe, welcome. I apologise for that. You've got no time limit, this as much as possible, so we can change it. And then we can stay put, so we can ask you questions.
The first off is an apology for the saying something about the garage. We can get the amended plans until after our meeting, so as far as we're concerned, it's the same again. Why we project into the garage, again, no, nothing to do with our objection, no problem with that at all. And the same with the which is also the members of the regulation. Our main problem, our issue would be with the windows in the back, which we mentioned about the light pollution. We felt it might be too much of a big open glaze. It's not just the open glaze, it's not just the extra window, it's the fact it's all open glazing rather than, if you look at the photographs they've got, as is quite traditional in the village, a lot of those windows have got this leaded beading on it. And then there are also windows on the plan, it's number 6, is that one, and the number 12, which are the long windows in there. There are 2 lots, the ones on the east elevation. Those long windows on the top left and bottom right, sorry. And there are those windows, and the fact that again that they've been taken out the lidded. Considering it's next to a listed property, I appreciate that that bit is a one extension, but with policy SB 17, where they talk about the local distinctiveness, I think that maybe it's including urban suburban traits in the historic environment. That's my objective.
Okay, thanks, very clear. Members, any questions for speaker? No? Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, so, apologies for that. So we have a recommendation to approve. In the light of what we've heard from our speakers, are there any questions from the officers before we go into the vote? No. In which case, we are in debate. Members of the experience. David.
So, I've got to say, once again, the photographs are very helpful. I have to say, I've quite forgotten what green grass looks like. So, it's a beautiful property. As a general principle, I think anything that gets through the careful eye of the conservation officer is probably going to be all right. And I agree with the officer's general recommendation here. There are significant advantages to this particular proposal in terms of sustainability. Certainly, we need to be thinking about adaptations to properties to make them more comfortable to live in, especially with the climate crisis. And you know, if this affords a little bit of air conditioning to the occupants and heating in the winter time, then that's certainly welcome. You have to take these things as a bit of a package, and comprehensively, I think this is an improvement, and I agree with the officer's recommendation. So for the third time today, Mr. Chair, I find myself proposing the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Any other comments from members? Table? No? Okay. Well, yeah, okay, thank you. So, just remind me, so what we're being asked to approve, or it's not a recommendation to grant subject to conditions, including this new condition. We don't have to, we can take it down as we just vote on the condition in the paper and on screen for everyone. Yeah, okay. So, we can go back to our speakers now for the debate so far. Mr. Bradford, do you want to have another minute to address any points raised? Thank you. And Ms. Pascoe, do you wish to? Okay, thank you very much. In which case, we have those. We have a second that. Yes, I didn't know whether anyone wishes to second this motion. Joe, I feel over there. So we have very small second to support the officer's recommendation to approve. Members, all those in favour of the officer's recommendation. Thank you very much, members. Now that brings us on to report on item number 4, which is number 26. I believe 00482, which is the listed building application for the changes we've just been discussing. So, Carly, do you want to briefly say something?
Sure, yes, the company is the building consent application, so the previous full application, and I won't go through the previous considerations and development, but in addition to that, this application includes internal alterations related to the staircase. The floor in the ground floor room is used as the kitchen and the bathroom, yes, so the additional considerations are there for whether these elements would result in enhancing the integrity of the building or any historic fabric, which off the back of the amended plan that's submitted, the building design conservation area team have no objection to, and are satisfied there will be no loss or harm to the historic fabric. So as for the full application, conditions relating to materials and external lighting can be imposed, and therefore the approval of the list of building consent application is recommended.
Okay, thanks, Carly. Members, any questions on this one? We've been through this. So, no. External speakers, we have a speaker in support, Gary Bradford again. Mr. Bradford, do you have a minute to answer it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks. And members, they have questions, please. Yeah.
But yeah, just to reiterate what Carly said, that this not really a historic fabric, it's being altered on this one, apart from local institution, excellent, and everything, the addition, previously. And, yeah, it's all been through construction on that, and, it's not additions on that, it's, apart from that, it's, yeah.
Thank you. Any questions? No. We have no speaker against. My list doesn't go up for parish council on this building consent. I just want to check with you. That's okay then. Thank you very much. So, in which case, we have a proposal to grant this building consent subject to conditions. We have a proposal to that. Very good. Thank you. And second, awesome. So we'll be on table to have all glory. Okay, so members, all those in favour of the opposite recommendation, please. Thank you very much, members. Okay, just want to check in. Nobody needs to come for a break at this stage. That's good. We've got crack on. We have.
Chair, sorry, I'm just having a little comment. So we've had this a few times.
Sorry, go on.
We've had this a few times that the list of building consent comes after the main planning application, and I just wondered, is there a reason for that? Because obviously, if we don't, if one might cancel the other out, if we do it the other way around.
There is a reason. I'm sure David will be. What's it is?
It's got the.
Sorry.
But it is feasible. I mean, the planning commission, not grant the civilian consent, but it would be unusual. It's everyone's way on. So, like.
We deal with the applications in application order, and then if something happens, it goes to the end of the agenda. So that purely we do with an application.
Okay.
So when they're submitted, if someone submits the list of building one first, it will get an earlier reference number than the full, but they seem to do the planning one first. Generally.
Was it the order of separation that was, you know?
No, it's the order.
Right.
It kind of changes views or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe that's a good thing that we don't do it that way.
Yeah, well, that was just exactly as Nancy says, so the application we just looked at, means that the planning application was 455, so it came in and the listed building consent on exactly the same site as 482. So that probably suggests they were sort of 3 weeks apart in being submitted into the National Park Authority. So typically the order of the committee will be as per the validation of the planning application. But I do take one, Caroline, that you don't have to come to the same conclusion on a planning application and a listed building consent. Maybe I wonder whether there's a bit of thought we can give to the committee. In principle, sometimes should we be looking at, say, the listed building elements first before we give a planning? Because there's some interaction between the two applications that sort of guide us a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think certainly on future agendas, we can look, as to say, we do it in effectively chronological order when they come in, but you know, whether there's something as a team we can think about that on future agendas.
It is an interesting point because the planning application will address wider issues than the civilian consent. So, yeah, I think one as well, something to think about, wasn't it? Okay. That brings us on, colleagues, to report item number 5, which is application 26/000492, which is an application for variation of conditions, Walden Cottage, New Forest Drive, Brockenhurst, and that's been presented for us by Carly. Keep going.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the information to the NPPF, the reference to section 12 within the policy section is now section 14 of the 2026 version. So the application site is located to the eastern side of New Forest Drive, proposing a detached dwelling within a temple garage, constructed since permission granted in 1997 for replacement dwelling. Just in terms of these red line plans, for clarity, the application site now is as the red line plan on the right hand side of the slide, but the red line plan on the left hand side of the slide, which you will find in your in the agendas is advertised in 1997 at the time of the replacement loan application, and since this period has moved forward in the residential development in the form of 9 Forest Drive. So these are the plans as approved in 1997, so it's just on the ground floor, garage, and the elevations. So conditions 2 and 3 of the 1997 official review class A, B, and C commercial development rights and restricted the use of the garage and cannot be converted for any parking accommodation or for any commercial use. And this application seeks to remove both of those conditions. Just some context of photos of the site, so we've got the garage there. And as you can see from the photographs, comparing them to the floor plans and from the planning history, the dwelling has already been quite significantly extended since 1997. The parish have recommended a refusal with their reasons citing conflict with local plan policies P2 and P36. However, as the site is located within a defined village boundary and was not a small dwelling either prior to or after its replacement, there is no floor space restriction created as such that the removal of conditions would then result in conflict with the aims of any policies. In officer view, there's no reasonable objection to the application that will be sustained, as the effect of removal of the conditions in this location, as I say, it doesn't conflict with the floor space. The approval of the application and the removal of conditions is therefore recommended. Chair.
Thank you very much, Carly. Any questions for the officer based on what you've heard so far? No? Okay, in which case we have a speaker and sort of the application. Lisa Fordyce, who is the planning agent, welcome, Fordyce. Again, you've got 2 minutes to set a case, and then if you could remain where you are, and please don't discuss your questions.
Thank you. Good morning, members. As mentioned, the application is for the removal of 2 historic conditions that were applied on the original application in 1997. We feel that some 30 years later, we feel that the conditions are generally deemed not required by on the site or no longer necessary. I just want to point out that the removal of these conditions doesn't necessarily give the applicant any and unrestricted future development on the site. It still need to go through general planning controls for the site to get planning permission, something that we need planning permission for. So therefore the authority will retain control over the site still, even with the removal of these conditions. It's also relevant that the site has received recent planning approval for a detached double garage on the site that was deemed acceptable and approved. And that the planning officer has recommended this for approval and for the removal of the conditions. The conditions obviously just retain, have removed all permitted development rights and for the garage to be used solely as a garage, but I think in this modern day extending the house or using the usable floor space within your house without extending one more comfortable living is more practical than having now what could be 2 garages on site. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for our speaker in this stage? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, remember to speak against the proposal. You have a bit from the parish council, so council will be welcome. Yeah. I would remind you, to build that, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This one, when it came up at our parish council, we didn't have, if you like, as far as we were concerned, as a committee, sufficient details. So we both play safe and sort of relatively keep things sort of as they are. And we've had a better explanation of the smallness, the whys and the wherefores. And so that's where we are. So we hesitated to make a decision on it. So we thought, well, if we go for refusal, if you come up again, it can be discussed and then hopefully sort it out. And that's why we're here today.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Has there any questions? Okay, you probably didn't want, you delegate some matters, but local, to the traffic park authority. Rather than refuse, recommending refusal.
Oh, yeah, no, well, that was our sort of thought, that we, without too much detail, how can we make a decision?
Okay,
Not as relevant to this one, this comes up quite a lot now, when we don't get officers' comments.
Okay,
So the story, thank you.
fair enough. Okay, members, any questions back to the officer? Good morning, Mr. Speaker, Chair.
Yeah, on the parish council's objection, can you explain what you're concerned on? Why you're concerned? On the council removing restrictions.
The comment that we received from the parish council, recommend refusal, so we have removing the restrictions, conflict of policy DD2 and DD36, and that's the extent of comments that we received.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for the officer at this stage? I just want to come back on the issue, is it right, the planning commission, we've been asked to remove conditions today, any result that requires planning commission, there will be a separate planning.
Yes, so this only relates to community development rights, which means that they can't currently do anything which is otherwise be community development, and they will be planning permission for, so. That may have class A, B, and C, so extensions, enlargements, normally goes to which are more community development right in national park anyway, and then class C relates to other roof alterations, generally things like roof lights. So it just means that currently they need to come in for a full application if it was to do anything that would otherwise be permitted development. Removing the condition would mean that they can go on the permitted development procedure, submit a development certificate if they want to, and not obliged to, and if they're satisfied, they're to otherwise we can comply. So it's not like litigation said, it's not saying that it's unrestricted development, it just means that they can do something under permitted development. Which the other properties in the area what we could do with that this rights intact. And also converting the intended land that we can see here, they don't, they're currently in permission for it. Even if they did come in for an application, it's unlikely they take would be that given this time for this location, and the fact that it's not something dwelling as I set out. We don't like to have an objection and where the removal condition is that we just go ahead and do it without having to go through that extra step.
Okay, thank you, that's the chair. Okay, members, Mary?
I beg your pardon, I've got too soon, I'll be in debate.
We're about to be,
Oh, good.
well, we are now, because you can see.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to say I very much agree with the officer recommendations. I feel that the added information was more than helpful in coming to that decision. And I would propose that we have approval as a recommendation for this application.
Thank you, Mary. Any other points, members?
Chairman, I'm happy to second. I mean, there's been something of a societal change. I'm old enough to remember when cars got rusty. That no longer happens. People don't use garages in quite the same way that was once necessary. And if I was ever lucky enough to own a property like that, I think I'd probably want to do much the same thing myself.
Thank you very much. Any comments from members? So, we have a proposal and a seconder, I believe, yeah, on this one, and the proposal is to approval without conditions. So, turn back to Ms. Fordyce. You've got a minute if you wish to take the opportunity. Thank you very much. Councillor Corby, you've got a minute if you want to say something.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. No, you wish to? Okay. In which case, we are, we can vote on the recommendation, which is to approve without conditions. All those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you very much, members. Thank you. That now brings on to, report item number 6, which is 26, I believe, 00543, which is a full application for Carden Romsey Road in Edmund, Southampton, and that's going to be presented for us by Natalie Walter. Natalie.
Thank you, Chair. Just to mention the NPDF references I've updated before I move into the presentation. So in the policy section of the committee reports, section 4, achieving sustainable development, section 3, decision making, section 14, achieving wildfire places, section 18, managing flood risk, and section 19, concerning and enhancing the natural environment. With in reference to specific paragraphs of the report, paragraph 8.11, the reference to the following paragraph 48 of the NPDF is now policy DM3, criterion 1F. In paragraph 8.18, the relevant policy is now DP3 2A, availability. And in paragraph 8.27, relevant section of the new NPDF, section 18, policy F. So the application site is located towards the end of the runway track access on Donaldson Road in Cadman. It contains a detached chalet-style dwelling. Dwelling that was built in 2011 and is the replacement of the mobile home previously located on site. The red line plan shown in this slide replicates the red line area of the original consent. This slide is an additional plan provided by the applicant to clarify the current extent of the package, and that's shown by the green line. So the mobile home here is associated with the dwelling, a different dwelling, and it's not part of this application. The application is for a single story rear extension, which is shown in grey on this slide. Current dwelling has a floor area of 120 square metres. And the proposed extension will add another 37 square metres to the dwelling. These are the existing and proposed ground floor plans, the one proposed on the right. It would allow the expansion and reorganisation of the ground floor to provide better equipment and an accessible bathroom to meet standards with this bathroom. This is the first floor plans and which will be unchanged. There's an existing proposed southwest elevations which will be unchanged, elevation. Existing proposed southeast side elevations. The extension has a flat roof design and facing the brickwork to match the existing building. Proposed northwest side elevations. And existing proposed rear elevation. This is a photograph from the property. This is a view towards the side elevation from the main garden. A view across the garden looking east. View across the garden looking west. So the closer view to the east. And it should show the access back to the property. And coming down the access track. So set out in the committee report, the application is a departure from the policies in the development plan in that it would exceed the floor space limitations contained in policy T36. However, in this case, the proposal is justified on the basis that it's required to meet the day-to-day living needs of the long-standing occupants of the dwelling. There are therefore material considerations that outweigh the conflict with the development plan. Proposal acceptable in relation to design and not give rise to harmful impacts on neighbouring community, so the committee effect on this subject conditions.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Members, any questions? Yes, this is what you've heard so far. No? Okay. We have one speaker in support of the application, Alex Webb. Ms. Webb. Got 3 minutes to set out your case, and you could say where you are when we finish, so we can discuss the questions that we're going to. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak in support of the application. I support the officer's recommendation and agree with the careful assessment in the committee report. The officers identified the technical conflict with policy D36, because the dwelling has reached the floor space limit for a smaller dwelling. However, each application should be judged on its own merits. Particular circumstances and other material considerations must also be taken into account. The report makes it clear that this proposal is not about creating a luxury accommodation or a larger house on the market. It responds to significant and evidence healthcare needs within the family who reside at Carden House. The extension would provide a larger, accessible bedroom and bathroom, which will allow the occupier to live safely with dignity in a home that better meets his challenging needs. Without this extension, you would need to go into residential care. As the report explains, these needs could not be reasonably been foreseen when the existing dwelling was first approved and built. The proposal responds to the change in circumstances, and it is not an attempt to get around policy. The extension is modest and would sit to the rear of the property and would not harm the character of the area or the special qualities of the national park. There would be no unacceptable impact on neighbours, and progress has also been properly assessed in the submitted progress assessment and proposed mitigation. The application before you is based on highly unusual site-specific circumstances. Approving it would not undermine policy D36 or set a harm precedent. The recommendation rests on the exceptional personal needs supported by evidence, and it's not a general relaxation of the policy. For those reasons, I respectfully ask for members to support the officer's recommendation and not the application.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions, applications from our speaker? No? No? In which case, thank you very much indeed. Okay, members, any questions for the officers based on what you've heard? Well,
Yes, do you have a height of the extension?
I don't have a height on them.
okay, any other questions for the rest of the day?
Yeah, I think it's probably fair to say that the authority hasn't always been supported by planning inspectors when it comes to trying to defend our position on DP36. I wonder to what extent our view on this particular application has been informed by that.
This application involving parts of the case, it's a small dwelling that was built up to 120 square metres based on the exceptional circumstances at the time. The needs of the occupant couldn't be foreseen at that time, and there are cases being made the circumstances now that further floor space is needed to revert to this on the basis of what's before us.
Yeah, I was just going to understand the question, so David, and I think it's absolutely said there. I think, and as we heard from the agent, this recommendation for commission is based on the exceptional circumstances unique to this case and the personal needs of the occupier. And it's interesting. I know Joe mentioned at the beginning his sort of role on the district council. Interestingly, the parish council in supporting it gave weight and cited those exceptional circumstances rather than, I think, probably fair to say this was just an application without those circumstances. We would probably have a different recommendation in front of us.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's probably event for ourselves today, but it is a legitimate reason to override policy. But I think for me, the key word in Baker's evidence, clearly often done due diligence on this and having some dealt with lightly. So this is a recommendation, obviously. But any other questions before we move into debate? No, in which case we are in debate. Observation from these members? Joe?
Yeah, I'm not a supporter of small dwellings in extent, but I think this is an exceptional case and I would support it and recommend the officer's recommendation.
Is that a formal proposal, Chair? Thank you. Caroline?
So whilst I completely agree that there are extenuating circumstances for this, and I would actually be quite happy to see this kind of extension in place after any other occupants might have left that room, because I think we don't have enough of that kind of facility in homes. Having said that though, I am a bit concerned that we don't seem to have the dimensions of the impact that this will have on the neighbours, and that does actually bother me. I can see that it's lower than the roof, but it's more because it's coming so close to the next door neighbour. I am a little bit concerned as to what the impact will be. It may be there would be no impact at all, but since we don't have the height of that extension, it's difficult to judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. We don't have any objections from the members of the neighbours on this one? No. I'm sure you're right, Caroline, in general sense, it's had the dimensions. Any other comments that members want to make? Cross debates? David?
Yeah, I think Caroline's made a really good point. It would give us a level of reassurance if we knew the exact dimensions and the potential impact on the neighbouring property. Nevertheless, I think on this one, we've had reassurance on the DP36 issue. I don't think we'd be loosening our rules. If there was anything we could do, I wish we could get rid of that plastic grass. You know, we shouldn't have this in national parks. But hey ho, that is an entirely separate issue and not the business for today. Yeah, okay, I accept it.
So, we, May.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say that I very much agree with the officer's recommendation. Those are, and has been evidenced and proved, absolutely exceptional personal circumstances that has been evidenced, and that does have a great material consideration over DP 36, and I very much agree, and we would second the proposal for approval. I also very much take on board Caroline's comments. I think going forward it would be really good to have those in applications, and then it gives a clearer picture for all. But first and foremost, it's very much evident that the material considerations out of policy DP 36, and it's not set in precedent going forward. It's based on its absolute own merits for this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further comments from members? In which case, we have a proposal to grant subject to conditions. We have that proposed and seconded. I'm going to ask Miss Webb whether you're entitled to 1 more minute. If you wish to speak for 1 more minute. If so, take a stand. So, yeah. Thanks. No new issues suggested from the way you heard.
No, just to say it's been designed to be low level, single story, and distances from boundaries have all been taken into account in the design of the extension. There would be minimal overlooking due to that size and scale, and there's already a amenity space there. I take the point about the landscaping, and will encourage that to be changed. But in terms of its nature, it's low key, so I wouldn't imagine there being any impact on overlooking or bearing on any neighbours.
Okay, thank you very much. So, members, we have a proposal first subject to condition. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much, members. And that concludes our timing case for it. Whatever we are going to give a short test on all the changes to the MBDA before you're allowed to leave the building. But I would like, to thank us for waiting. What is a very significant, complicated document, and making sure that we discreetly clean today in our applications, in terms of the arrangements. So that brings us now up to, yes, back to your 7. Planning appeals, item 6. I think we only have one, David.
Yeah, I'm happy to just bring members up to speed. I think two committees there are about a dozen plan bills this time. We've got one, but it's been a really interesting bill decision. So for Martin and Gordon to benefit, we remind members of the bill that we've had in the last month or so since the last committee. They are something that we want to certainly look through and try and learn from, and they feed into the revision of the local plan. So the one bill decision we've had in the last month relates to uplands at Biston Close in Burnley. We raised some really interesting principles actually this bill decision. So this was a non-designated heritage asset, so a locally important building. We have about 2,000 plus of those in the national park and make a major contribution to the character of the area. This is one that was identified through the Burley Conservation Area Character Appraisal about 15 years ago or so. So it's a locally important building sitting within a conservation area, which is effectively a designated heritage asset. It has legal protection because of that conservation area status. It was an application to replace the dwelling, to demolish it completely and replace it. So I think I'm not going to go paragraph by paragraph through the decision, but I think the inspector gives some really interesting commentary on the impacts on the contribution that building makes to the wider conservation area, and actually some really interesting commentary on what options do you have to keep that building and put in some of the measures that the applicant was seeking to do, which were laudable, but actually do within the existing building rather than just have the principle of demolishing it and then putting its sustainability benefits and what wider benefits that could actually be done within the existing building. So I think the commentary in sort of paragraphs 10 to 18 on the contribution the building makes itself as a non-designated heritage asset. The inspector concluded it makes an important contribution to the character of the conservation area. The inspector did probe the structural survey and concluded it didn't have any fundamental issues with the building's actual structure. It was structurally sound. And the inspector concluded, in line with our view in refusing the application, that they were convinced that the building was of low significance and required demolition. Interesting bit of commentary on the conservation area. I think paragraph 20 is a really interesting one. It says, I see no reason why the existing building could not include many of the sustainability measures advanced for the proposal, such as low level lighting, renewable energy source. So therefore, the benefits and the plan balance to do with energy efficiency and energy measures could actually be done in the existing building. That's the point that we'll also debate about with as the planning authority here, to actually try and use the buildings we've got rather than just a principle of let's demolish them and start again. So in summing up and dismissing that here, I think it's one of the, we don't get that many good decisions a year that engage in these really important principles, impacts on non-designated heritage assets, impacts on conservation areas, impacts on the energy efficiency that were rightly being sought through this proposal. And I think it's spent certainly 6 pages of commentary on that. So there's explored those in quite a lot of detail and has found against the appeal and in favour of our original decision. So I think that's it's got an important and useful decision for us that so at least one we've looked at quite closely since it came out. And then I'll probably pause the only bit. The second annex we have in front of your request is the current live appeals for planning enforcement and trees. Again, I won't go through these in any detail. It's just a couple of lines that pique your interest. So last month's planning committee, small cottage. We'll notice that's now at the bottom of the list, so that both the listed building consent taken precedence point and the full planning application have both been appealed almost immediately after the planning committee's decision. So that will be one that we're working on as a team to prepare the decision on that one. And obviously we'll report that when we get it. So that's probably all I have shared.
Thank you, David. Yeah, it was an encouraging decision. That's so read. Joe.
Is there any update on Vernon Dean?
Good question, Joe. So Vernon Dean, so just on my members, this is to do with the enforcement notice appeal. I know you know that, Joe. Rather than sort of wider issues to do with certificate for release. So, bit more words to go for here. So the enforcement appeal is obviously led by the planning inspector. So the planning inspector are reviewing the formats of that appeal. So originally it was going to be a risk and reps appeal with statements due around about now. There has been talk about the issues that it raises needing to be explored in more detail. So I think the inspector are probably leaning towards it being more of an inquiry or a hearing session, so an in-person session. There have been one or two developments, and the Secretary of State has recently confirmed that it needs some environmental impact assessment, scale of that development. That generates quite a lot of work for the owners. So I'm explaining this very well. The timeline for that being heard has extended now. So I think rather than being a written appeal, this is likely to be heard at a very more formal format, and the date for us to submit statements has been pushed back consequently.
So how does that tie in with the legal procedures that's going on at Vernon Dean?
So there's two separate processes here, and Gareth might want to come in on these. In terms of the High Court's Court of Appeal decision, if that's what you're referring to, Joe? Yeah, so that's separate from this enforcement appeal. I think it's quite to my left, and Gareth might be able to give you a brief update on the legal procedures and where we're at with that and how much we
So this is actually separate.
Yeah, this is purely sort of separate issues to do with the enforcement notice that effectively the appeal against our enforcement notice was sort of stalled or held in abeyance while the courts went through their processes. Once the courts have made their decision, this one then got picked up again.
Yeah.
But I don't go with you.
That's actually what I want to know.
Yeah, so the legal process in terms of the certificates of completed that was and then discuss that. What goes into the enforcement, as David said, is what was held in bed subject to that hearing, but then it's effectively repeatedly been pushed back with various other procedural reasons. So we have a case management conference on the 2nd of October. I think if we're talking about the actual finding of the appeal, I think that maybe might potentially go into next year. It's likely, but there's going to be likely the end of this year and next year before it's actually there. I think.
Yeah, one more question today. On Riverside and Arrow, it's isn't on the list. It's been on the list for a long time. There was an enforcement notice on that place for a long time, and I noticed this came off. Can you let me know?
Yeah, I'm happy to let you know about the Riverside out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look straight after this and get them, drop you an email with that one. Yeah. So if the decision has been made, I'll make sure that you've received that decision.
Yeah.
If it hasn't, I'll let you know why.
Okay, thank you. Quite a number of people have asked.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, members. That brings us to item 7, any other items, here, sites of illusion. I just wanted to, I realise you did this proper briefing on the new MPPF and you thought we don't put you on the spot. But the one thing I noticed with the morning was that it did have something to say about retrospective planning applications. Have you been cited enough to tell us about that?
Yeah, so obviously just for Baby Martin and Gordon's benefit, this committee's had a number of retrospective applications come in the last few months. Not all in the Hamlet area of the National Department, quite a lot of them up there. And I know through the member training that we've done with committee members, the conversation has always been whether an application is retrospective or not. It's not directly relevant to our determination. You're not penalised, you're not benefiting from it being retrospective. It's effectively neutral. We look at those applications on their merits. The government did consult on their draft MPPF last year and included this proposal that where effectively writing international, what they're now calling, I have to check the national decision-making policies. They had a draft national decision-making policy that said where something comes before a committee for determination and it's an unauthorised development, and that's been intentional, you should give weights to that. So that's quite a major change, because until now, it's always been the case. And I know it's probably a bit of a frustration for the committee, probably officers, but it's always been the case that you can't really give any weights to that. So as you say, Steve, in the version that came out yesterday, National Development Making Policy, DM8, it's called Unauthorised Development and Enforcement, and it says, it's not that long, in cases of unauthorised development where consideration is being given to an application for retrospective permission or for an enforcement appeal, if it is concluded based on evidence that the unauthorised development was intentional, that fact should be given substantial weight in considering whether to grant planning permission. So I think I'm probably going to have to sit in a dark room for a bit and think about what that means, and just understand what the views of other planning authorities are around that. It appears, based on the 12 hours since it came out, it appears that the government are saying that will be material, that will be something that you should be factoring in, which is quite a change from what we've done today. So let's say for our networks, whether that's the MPA, as a planning group, whether it's regional enforcement managers group, whether it's some of the groups that Natalie and others represent the MPA on, we will just unpack that a little bit more and get under the meaning of it. But it would appear that what they raised last summer, they have followed through on and said that would now be something you should be giving weight to.
And if that is the case, then that would be very relevant. So that's what another evidence deliberate intentional. But nevertheless, it says if we understand it correctly, is that a pretty useful step forward on that. Okay, Mary, just if you can.
I beg your pardon, it's not the appropriate forum to ask this, just let me know if it's online. So with any case that's gone to an appeal, will the planning inspector take the new view of as of yesterday, or will they take a retrospective view as to how it was in the past?
Yeah, it's a good question, that Mary. My initial view, and it may be this is something I get back to outside of the recorded meeting and lots of had time to digest it. My view is, given that the NPBF comes into immediate effects, I've been myself on appeal hearings where an NPBF has come out in lunchtime with that appeal hearing, and in the afternoon we've had to talk, right, this will be what we're basing the decision on. So I would have thought, going forward from yesterday, appeal decisions should be having regard and should be taking this into account. Timing wise, that's quite interesting, where enforcement action has been taken or applications come in before this was the policy, but the decisions made afterwards. I'm probably going to have to just unpack this bit. I think you framed up a bit more to understand how it affects you. But yeah, I think the decision making today should be having regards to it. I don't quite know in my own mind what that means for applications or issues that came up when this was a question of policy.
Thank you. I do apologise for putting on.
That's a good question.
Yeah, honest on that, definitively in due course, good question. Okay, members, that brings us on to date of next meeting, which is 15th September, and the venue is here, in fact. Delighted that the microphones, I don't know whether it's technology or a miracle or whatever, but they seem to held up. Yeah, I do get the end of the meeting. Good, thank you very much. Well done.